This is the Conservative Crusader.
Welcome back. This is the Conservative Crusader here on the Red Future Radio Network. Joining us now is a friend of the program and a friend of mine. He's an Air Force veteran, a recently vindicated, we'll get to that in a second, a nuclear energy executive, and a 2022 Republican nominee for Congress in Ohio's 9th District. J.R. Majewski is joining us now, fresh off of his vindication victory lap. J.R., welcome to the program. How are you?
Thanks, Josh. I'm doing pretty good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and you have great reason to be doing pretty good. So some backstory for the audience. We saw a major attack come out from the Associated Press during your last campaign, slandering your military service, saying you weren't a combat veteran, etc. It caused the NRCC to pull out funds, the RNC to completely just abandon you. We all know the story, but just a few days ago, your records were updated, and it shows that you were not lying about your service. You did not lie, and the AP actually lied. What are your thoughts for this entire process, and how do you feel now?
Well, I think it's an example of how our political parties, be it, I think it more stems from the Democratic Party, but just how political operatives in the political parties will do anything that they have to do to stay in power. And that does not exclude disparaging veterans and going after their credibility and their service. You know, they say in politics, when they don't have anything against you, they'll make something up. And that's certainly what they did in my circumstance.
They absolutely did. So they went into detail and claimed that you weren't a combat veteran, which I don't know how they can classify that based on whatever example they had. But your record's been vindicated in a technical sense. The media hasn't came back and walked this back any. The Associated Press article is still on their website. So what's your next move?
Well, I've been considering filing a lawsuit. It's been kind of a whirlwind ever since the news came out. There's a lot of talk about it in, locally here. The local news has all picked it up, and they've essentially acknowledged that, they made a mistake by, kind of towing the line for the Associated Press. But, it's just going to depend. I've got potential political aspirations to get back into the race for Ohio 9. And, I'm just kind of taking it a day at a time. I've waited a year and worked a little bit less than a year now to fight this and get my record straight. So, patience for me is the virtue. And, the truth is going to come out, and it'll always come out. And this is just one step, I think, in telling the true tale of what happens here politically in the 9th District of Ohio, but then also, what happens in the halls of federal Congress.
So we'll get to your congressional run in just a second, sir. I'd love to see you hop back into that race. But we see President Trump. He's going to be president again very soon. You're good in energy. You're good in the nuclear field. I mentioned this on the program the other day. I think you should be an energy appointee in the administration. I think that'd be a great role for you, just putting that in your radar and your scope. Just my 2 cents in that regard. So you were defeated in 2022, obviously, because they lied about you. You were on track to beat Marcy, who's been in Congress for 40 years. She's up again next year, obviously. The Republican nomination is still pretty up in the air. What are your thoughts on the field thus far?
Well, I think we have, there were 3 candidates. You had Dan Wilczynski, Steve Lankenau, and Craig Riedel. And, they were Steve Lankenau and Dan Wilczynski kind of were new to politics. I believe they were both mayors at one point in time, but, they got in the race. They did a pretty good job. They speak very eloquently. They understand the district. They both grew up here. But then you have, Republican leadership that has decided that they were going to make a play in the primary, and they came out and endorsed Craig Riedel, which, I would argue, and so would others, that, when I dropped out of the race because of my mother's health, there was an effort to make sure that I didn't get back in the race. And then, I was invited to watch the Sound of Freedom, which you came with me to do at Bedminster. And it wasn't maybe 24 to 48 hours after we were at Bedminster with President Trump that, the news came out that they were endorsing. So I think it was an attempt to demotivate me if I was to get back in, but I don't think they realized that I'm not scared of them. And so as far as the field goes, I don't think that any of the candidates so far have the the gumption to defeat Marcy Kaptur. Craig Riedel is extremely far right in some of his positions. This is a union district, and you can't be a guy that wants to break the unions when you want to represent the district that makes the Jeep, right? It's not going to work. And Craig has also taken some pretty hard stances following the line of the Republican Party, who is obviously, as you know, failed pretty hard with issue 1. So I see Marcy, putting together a pretty good list of attacks against Craig based on his voting record alone, let alone the fact that he's not a very personable guy, and not many people, can relate to him. He just doesn't represent the true blue collar people here in the 9th district like I do.
I'm not really sure what his background was before he decided to run for office, but he seems just like a politician to me. I want to go back a second. 48 hours after the Sound of Freedom screening is when they endorsed, the leadership endorsed Craig Riedel. I didn't realize that was the timing of it. So they see her around the president. They see her in his orbit. They obviously, I don't think McCarthy wants him back in office, or any real conservative or any leader in Washington wants him back in office. So they saw that, they saw the power, and they saw the two best men in politics, in my opinion, you and President Trump, in the room. They decided to endorse someone who might be running against you, and you're not even in the race. That's how afraid of you they are. So if you hop back in, obviously you had the kind of devastating defeat last cycle. How are you going to come back from that? Even though your record's been vindicated, you have sort of a defamed name at this point. Do you think you can come back?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that like I said, the local news here, the Toledo Blade has never been a friend of the Republican Party, and as you saw with the article that they wrote about me last week, or this past Sunday, they were pretty open and honest about me, and they didn't hide any details, right? They were pretty forthcoming. So I don't think that. I think they realized that, I was mistreated, and there's opportunity for me to get a lot of free media. And, I think, I know from hearing there's been people that, have felt a little bit guilty for believing in all of the propaganda. And I've received numerous phone calls of people saying, hey, I apologize. And I didn't even realize they believed it, but they still reached out to me and said, look, I apologize for, believing in the story, and still voted for you, or what have you. But, they just wanted to show their appreciation for me sticking in and fighting it out and being honest. So, I think there's definitely an element of, sympathy, I guess you could say, for people maybe understanding what I went through. But also, I was, tied in the polls with a 40-year incumbent after, she had spent millions of dollars attacking me on other crazy things. And I hadn't bought any media up to that point. And so, that said, I think there's an opportunity for me to get back in and really, put question to anything Marcy puts out. I mean, it's going to be hard for her to attack me when she's, it's proven that she spent, over $10 million lying about me. It would really dent her credibility. So anything and everything she said against me would, I think would fairly draw a lot of scrutiny.
Jeremy,
no other Republican's going to have that, weapon at their disposal.
Absolutely. J.R. Majewski's with us at J.R. Majewski over on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So if you do hop back in, I want you back on the show as soon as possible, because we need someone good in Congress, someone that will stand with the Freedom, not really the Freedom Caucus, is kind of dead at this point, but the actual conservatives in Congress, help lead that charge for the Trump movement in 2025 in the Congress after he's reelected. And I gotta say it. Hopefully you're in Congress, man. I mean, I know we're friends, and I wanna see you in there. J.R. Majewski, thank you for hopping on with us. Where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on X at J.R. Majewski. Still have my website up at jr4ohio.com. I'm on all other forms of social media. J.R. Majewski, just search for me there and you'll find me.
So true. Thank you for joining me, sir, and we'd love to have you on again.
All right, brother. Thank you for having me, and you'll hear from me again. You know you will.
Yes, sir. Jared Majewski. Back after this here on the program.
You're listening to the Conservative Crusader.